Two Floridas are moving in opposite directions. One is flooded with for sale signs, the other just set a $17,000 record. Start with the pressure points. Along the Gulf Coast from Naples to the edge of Tampa Bay, storms over the last 5 years battered roofs and balance sheets. In Florida, the average home insurance policy price has jumped roughly 40% in 3 years. That kind of surge doesn't just sting. It changes who can hold on, who can buy, and who decides to quietly exit. Meanwhile, on the Atlantic side, in South Florida, a penthouse in Bay Harbor Islands sold for $17,000 in 2025, beating a $12,500 high water mark. Two coasts, two stories, same state. The Gulf side tale starts with inventory. In a boating neighborhood along Charlotte Harbor near Punta Gorda, more than 100 units are on the market right now. That's nearly 10% of all homes in that community. Prices are coming down and time on market is stretching. The metrics echo across two of the region's heavyweight metros, Cape Coral Fort Myers and Northport Bradenton Sarasota, both ranked among the top 4 destinations most sought by Canadian buyers in the United States. But the search patterns have thinned, and so has the urgency. Projections for 2026 call for price declines of 10.2% in Cape Coral and 8.9% in Northport, with Tampa forecast to slip 3.6% after a painful 2025. This supply wave didn't arrive by accident. Hurricanes over 5 years destroyed homes and damaged others, and the follow-on effect was swift. Florida's average insurance policy up about 40% in just 3 years. Layer that on top of the pandemic-era boom that is now decisively over, and an odd mismatch emerges. Home construction is still in full swing even as would-be buyers pull back. More listings, fewer takers. In neighborhoods like that, one in Charlotte Harbor, seeing more than 100 active listings, close to a tenth of the total homes, isn't normal churn. It's a signal. And then there's the cross-border chapter. Canadians collectively own an estimated $60 million worth of property in Florida. That capital has been a seasonal engine for decades. But sentiment has changed. A recent survey found that 54% of Canadians who own property in the United States are considering selling within the next year, and close to 2/3 cited concerns over the current U.S. podcast. Administration as their top reason to sell. Traffic from Canadian shoppers has cooled, and listings from Canadian owners have grown in pockets along the Gulf. The number of Canadian visitors has plunged, fewer snowbirds staying for weeks or months, and local budgets feel it when occupancy drops. There's a very human version of this broader math. Donna Lockhart, a snowbird from Ennismore, Ontario, decided to sell a condo near Punta Gorda. When she looked around Charlotte Harbor, she found more than 100 units for sale. Nearly 10% of her waterfront community was on the market. That's a sea of signs for a single neighborhood. Rather than join the crowd, she made a different choice. Wait and list in early 2027, hoping the tide turns. The holding pattern comes with carrying costs. It also captures the current mood among owners facing a softer market. Wait if you can, sell if you must. Zoom out to what this means for city finances and main streets. The Canadian presence in Florida isn't just seasonal chatter, it's revenue. Canadians pay an estimated $600,000 annually in property taxes statewide. When fewer come and fewer buy, the tax mix shifts. The share of the burden moves from visitors to year-round residents in many Gulf Coast communities. Restaurants and small businesses that counted on winter visitors staying for weeks or months are feeling the gap. The ripple doesn't stop at real estate listings. It runs through payrolls and pothole budgets. On the ground, the data comes with texture. Analysts tracking the region describe an exceptionally high level of inventory. Prices are coming down considerably. Time on market is up. That's the trinity of a buyer's landscape, reinforced by projections that 2026 will extend the declines recorded in 2025, 10.2% down in Cape Coral, 8.9% in Northport, 3.6% in Tampa. In Cape Coral, agents are also seeing something else, a floor of steady buyer interest even as the market adjusts. Retirees still tour open houses. Second home seekers still kick the tires. Relocation buyers arrive with measured confidence, taking advantage of increased inventory to compare more homes, negotiate more carefully, and avoid urgency-driven bids. Builder prices are reportedly softening, creating new construction opportunities for those willing to buy amidst the noise. Contrast that with South Florida's current arc. There, it is technically a buyer's market, but momentum is fickle. Lower interest and mortgage rates would bring more people back to the hunt, raise competition, and push pricing power back toward sellers. The luxury segment is already signaling a different temperature. In Bay Harbor Islands, the $17,000 penthouse sale that reset the local record in 2025 eclipsed a prior $12,500 mark. Developers haven't stopped either. A $1 million mixed-use community called Upland Park is set to break ground and connect with West Miami-Dade County's Dolphin Park and Ride Transit terminal facility. A separate beachside collaboration will add 24 condos. And in the active adult niche, a 55-plus rental community was completed, responding to demand from downsizers who prefer amenities without the maintenance. The fuel behind that endurance is global. Over a 22-month stretch that concluded in 2025, global buyers accounted for over 50% of new construction home sales in South Florida. More than half, an outbound stream of capital that doesn't flinch at homeowners insurance quotes in the way a wage earner might. That statistic matters because it hints at two different kinds of resilience. In South Florida, depth of international demand can keep cranes moving and records falling even when rates rise. In Southwest Florida, demand has leaned more on domestic retirees and second homeowners with a heavy Canadian overlay. When that overlay thins, the support under prices thins too. Which brings us back to insurance, the silent choke point. A 40% jump in average policy price over 3 years isn't an abstract percentage. It's a mortgage-sized payment layered onto the mortgage. It can turn a listing into a lingering listing. In Cape Coral, Fort Myers, and Northport, Bradenton, Sarasota, two metros that were among the top 4 in Canadian interest, those premiums compound other headwinds. The pandemic boom brought a surge of building. That construction stayed in full swing, even as would-be buyers pulled back. Inventory stacks up. Time on market lengthens. Prices correct. The forecast for 22.6 down 10.2% in Cape Coral, down 8.9% in Northport, down 3.6% in Tampa, reflects that slow rebalancing after a painful 2025. The other lever is sentiment from abroad. Canadians own roughly $60 million in Florida real estate. If 54% of those who own U.S. property truly lean into selling within the next year, the trickle of listings could become a stream. Close to 2/3 of those potential sellers say politics is their top reason. That's not a spreadsheet variable, but it still moves prices when listings stack up, especially when more than 100 homes representing nearly 10% of a single waterfront community hit the market at once. The social math shows up in city ledgers. With $600,000 in annual property taxes tied to Canadian owners, a decline in that base forces choices. Fewer part-time residents paying full-time taxes means more weight on year-round homeowners. When the number of Canadian visitors plunges, the empty tables in January and February don't just hurt restaurant revenue, they ripple into hiring and investment decisions for the following season. When visitors once stayed for weeks or months and now stay away, the multiplier effect shrinks, and that becomes part of the real estate story too. Fewer potential buyers walking neighborhoods, fewer impulse visits to open houses, fewer referrals to local brokers. There is still activity in the Gulf markets. Agents in Cape Coral describe a shift that actually benefits thoughtful buyers. Increased inventory provides more options to evaluate. A balanced marketplace emerges where well-priced, properly presented homes still move at a healthy pace. The adjustment period has strengthened buyer confidence, the logic goes, because more time to evaluate leads to greater satisfaction with the final decision. On the new construction side, builder prices appear to be easing, which can create entry points for those who can handle today's insurance quotes. None of those observations erase the statistics: 10.2%, 8.9%, 3.6%, but they put them in context. A broad cooling with islands of motion. If the split screen feels surreal, look again at South Florida's construction drumbeat. A $1 million ground up is a tangible vote of confidence. In Bay Harbor Islands, a $17,000 record is a data point, not a headline, but it matters because it opens comps. In a 22-month window ending in 22.5, global buyers were over 50% of new construction sales. That's a meaningful cushion because it suggests the buyer pool for certain projects is more insulated from domestic affordability shocks. When developers plan a 24-unit beachside building, they are, in effect, wagering that the next 24 buyers will be price takers at a particular level. The presence of a 55-plus rental community completed in South Florida adds another layer. Demand from active adults can sustain projects that might be too thinly sliced elsewhere in the state. Back on the Gulf side, caution remains the operative word. If storms over 5 years raise premiums by roughly 40% in 3, the question is whether insurers stabilize or push further. If the average policy jumps again from its already elevated base, expect even more pressure on valuations, especially in metros where 2026 is already forecast to bring declines. In Cape Coral-Fort Myers, a 10.2% projected dip layered on top of 2025's pain can reset expectations for both sellers and appraisers. In Northport, Bradenton, Sarasota, an 8.9% projected slide can reposition neighborhoods that boomed during the pandemic into slow reset zones. In Tampa, a 3.6% expected decline isn't as dramatic, but it still matters for homeowners who counted on flat or rising prices to refinance or relocate. The human decisions inside this landscape rarely look like spreadsheets. Donna Lockhart's call to hold until early 2027 reads as a single story, but it also reflects a broader tactic. Ride out the soft patch if you can afford to. Owners face association fees whether the unit is occupied or empty. If your community near Charlotte Harbor has more than 100 listings, nearly 10% of its homes, patience makes sense. If you're a buyer, the same numbers say something too. In a place where time on market is rising and prices are trending down, your leverage increases with every week. The presence of steady interest in Cape Coral means good inventory can still go fast, but the market's mood lets you be deliberate. South Florida's buyer's market comes with a disclaimer. It may not last long if mortgage rates decline. Lower mortgage and interest rates would mean more people come off the sidelines, pushing competition and prices up and tilting advantage to sellers. That's not a forecast of a frenzy, just the mechanics of demand. In markets where over a 22-month span through 2025, more than 50% of new construction buyers were global, rate cuts might be just the nudge needed to bring domestic buyers back into the same projects. In Bay Harbor Islands, the $17,000 sale that cleared the prior $500,000 high in 25 towels tells you the top of the market can handle stronger bids. The question is whether that strength filters down. It's also worth watching how new supply meets actual absorption. The $1 million Upland Park plan that will connect into West Miami-Dade County's Dolphin Park and Ride Transit Terminal facility is a scale bet. Transit-connected mixed-use developments add units, shops, and foot traffic, and they tend to draw buyers who are less sensitive to monthly carrying costs. The 24 new beachside condos planned by another team target a rarity market. Small counts, strong finishes, location premiums. The 55-plus rental community comes at demand from a different angle, a turnkey alternative for active adults who may have sold single-family homes. All three point to a base case in South Florida where supply continues to hit the market through 26 and, if rates ease, finds a deeper pool of takers. The Gulf side base case is less glossy, but clearer. Through 2026, the most likely path is a continued reset, down 10.2% in Cape Coral, down 8.9% in Northport, and down 3.6% in Tampa. Inventory remains high. Time on market remains elevated. The drop-off in Canadian buying persists, and listings by Canadian owners increase in certain neighborhoods. In that Charlotte Harbor community, more than 100 units for sale, nearly 10% of homes, may not be unique. Capacity built during the pandemic takes time to digest. That's the likely arc, absent a surprise. Two watch items could bend these trajectories. First, insurance. If Florida's average policy price, up roughly 40% in 3 years, stabilizes or even edges lower through 26, that relief could pull more buyers back into single-family homes from Naples to the edge of Tampa Bay. If it climbs again, the affordability vice tightens further, and price declines in Cape Coral, Northport, and Tampa could deepen beyond the current 10.2%, 8.9%, and 3.6% projections. Second, Canadian flows. With an estimated $60 million in Florida property owned by Canadians and 54% of Canadian owners considering selling within a year, watch whether listing volumes spike across Cape Coral, Fort Myers, and Northport, Bradenton, Sarasota. If close to two-thirds of those sellers continue to cite politics as their primary motivation, it may keep pressure on values into early 2027 in the very pockets where many snowbirds bought during the boom. There are glimmers of counterweights. In Cape Coral, reports of steady buyer interest and easing builder prices mean the market hasn't frozen. Well-presented homes still move. Buyers have time to compare. In South Florida, the combination of a $17,000 record, a $1 million project moving toward groundbreaking, a 24-unit beachside addition, and a 55-plus rental completion indicates developer confidence that runs ahead of headlines. And, in a 22-month period that culminated in 2005, the reality that over 50% of new construction homes went to global buyers suggests that one half of that market is guided by different math. So, Florida splits, for now. A buyer's market on the Gulf Coast, heavy on inventory and heavier on patience, tracking toward projected declines of 10.2%, 8.9%, and 3.6% in 2026. A buyer's market in South Florida that may pivot if mortgage rates drop, with the high end already printing a $17,000 sale and global capital taking more than half of new construction for a 22-month stretch ending in 2025. Underneath both is the same lever, risk. A 40% insurance surge in 3 years on one side. A pipeline funded by buyers who don't flinch at seven figures on the other. And threaded through the middle, $600,000 in property taxes paid annually by Canadians, a softened stream of Canadian visitors, and the personal calculus of whether to sell in 2026 or wait until early 2027. Base case, through 22.6, Southwest Florida digests inventory and slides further, 10.2% down in Cape Coral, 8.9% down in Northport, 3.6% down in Tampa, while South Florida absorbs luxury and new construction supply with the help of global buyers, a $1 million ground up, and the lingering tailwind of a $17,000 record in Bay Harbor Islands. Watch insurance pricing, already up about 40% in 3 years, and watch Canadian listing and travel patterns from an ownership base worth roughly $60 million and responsible for about $600,000 in annual property taxes. Those two gauges will do more than headlines to tell you where Florida housing goes next. If you value clear, numbers-first storytelling about Florida's housing crosscurrents, consider sticking with this channel for the next chapter.